Well, the U.S. continues to send military might to the region to act as a deterrent at the same time, trying to de-escalate the war from expanding through diplomacy. Now, the Senate introducing a resolution warning Iran not to expand this conflict. Let's bring in Lester Munson, the former staff director of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Lester, thank you so much for joining us. First, let's just talk about the significance of Secretary Antony Blinken making the surprise visits to Ramallah in the West Bank, Baghdad over the weekend. What is the significance? Is that making a difference?
Well, I think it is making a difference, and kudos to the administration, particularly at that cabinet level, for working so hard on this. There's a lot of challenges out there: the humanitarian situation in Gaza, the situation with respect to the hostages, but also planning for the future of Gaza. And I suspect the real conversations that are going on here behind the scenes are with key Arab leaders in particular in the region about who will govern Gaza once the Israeli operation is over. That is a critical question, and I hope the administration's doing some good work on that in these visits.
And I do want to talk about that too, kind of like what happens after all is said and done. But let's talk about this bipartisan resolution being proposed by senators warning Iran against expanding this conflict into a wider regional war. Talk about the significance of this resolution, whether or not it's likely to have any influence, particularly on how Iran proceeds, since we are seeing dozens at this point of attacks on U.S. troops in the region.
Nichole, I have to say, in and of itself, it's fine. In the grand scheme of things, it's weak sauce. The Senate needs to be doing more. Congress has led in terms of putting sanctions on Iran over the last couple of decades. That is not this. This is just a message. I don't even think it's been introduced yet, much less passed by the Senate. What the Senate should be doing is attaching mandatory sanctions on Iran to the aid package that it's currently considering for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. That is must-pass legislation, and the Senate can be much more vigorous in what it's doing right now. And frankly, I think part of this is weak sauce because Senator Menendez is sidelined by his legal situation. He's actually been one of the terrific voices in terms of U.S. opposition to Iranian malfeasance in the region, and we kind of miss him playing a key role here.
And let's just talk about what we heard from, the Lebanese Hezbollah leader on Friday. Is it just a matter of time before this conflict expands?
I don't think that's true. I think part of what Secretary Blinken and also Director of the CIA, Bill Burns, are doing in the region is talking to leaders behind closed doors about containing this conflict. There really is no responsible leader in the region, with the exception of the Iranians, who want to see this expand. Lebanon doesn't want it. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, none of these countries want this conflict to expand. They want to contain it as much as possible. They can't really say that in public, but they're working on it behind the scenes. At least that is what I fervently hope.
And Lester, as you see it, is Iran really the biggest wild card in all of this?
It is, and this is where the administration does have a problem. Their schizophrenic policy in the Middle East, trying to support Israel on the one hand while also maintaining this opening to Iran. You really can't do both. You can't have an Iranian nuclear deal while this is happening with respect to Israel and Gaza. So we do need to see a new approach from the administration on the Iran question, and I hope that comes sooner rather than later.
And I want to go back to what you had said in your first answer, talking about how Gaza will be governed. I mean, how does this all end, so to speak?
Well, it's going to have to be concluded in a way that Hamas is no longer capable of launching attacks against Israel. And that means not just the horrific things we saw 3 or 4 weeks ago in Israel on October 7th. It means eliminating the tunnels and eliminating the rockets that Hamas really is still launching every day today into Israeli civilian areas. That means there's going to have to be another governance structure, whether that's with Egypt or with other leaders in the region, or with some sort of Israeli role through the United Nations or something like that. I don't think the administration's talked about their plan at this point, but there is a plan. There should be a plan, and it's going to have to involve just a rock-solid certainty that a Hamas cannot launch these attacks again. I think that's why Secretary Blinken was in the West Bank talking to leaders there, because they can play a bigger role in Gaza in the future.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.